I mean, I was told she was sending out hits on people. I was told her brothers would kidnap young women, take them up to their mansion, rape them, pass them around the security guard.
There is a tendency for women to be more violent than men so that the men who are around them will take them seriously.
When you have plastic bags on the backdrop, you know something's going to happen. You know that they don't want to stain.
While countless stories have circulated about male narco lords and their ruthless actions, their female counterparts are no strangers to the world of narcotics. Stories of brutality orchestrated by female narco lords frequently make headlines and contribute to the narrative of crime and power in our daily news. Women in the lives of narco lords usually assist their partners in money laundering and other small tasks, but some women involved with narco lords don't just stay at home looking pretty. They actively take part in the daily activities of the narcotics cartel. They kidnap innocent people, torment rival sicarios, and work as partners in crime with their narco lord husbands. Some also manage parts of the narcotics business and lead groups of hitmen in different factions. And sometimes their method of tormenting their victims is far worse than the male sicarios. In this video, we will tell you about female narco lords who surpassed all boundaries of humanity while tormenting their victims. Grela de Blanco. Born in February 1943 in Santa Marta, Colombia, Grela de Blanco is often hailed as the most influential queenpin of her era, mentioned in the same breath as figures like Pablo Escobar. She emerged from a financially struggling family and was pushed into a life of crime as early as 11 years old. She grew up in a tumultuous environment which shaped her into a tough and harsh woman. When she was 11 years old, she abducted a boy and demanded ransom from his parents. When the affluent parents refused to pay, she took the boy's life. Committing such a heinous act at such a young age was exceptionally rare, and it gives us an early glimpse into the type of criminal she would eventually become. At the age of 14, she ran away from her home, seeking refuge from her mother's boyfriend who had been victimizing her repeatedly. No one knows how long he had been hurting her. It's also unknown whether her mother knew about it and chose to stay silent. She met and married Carlos Trujillo when she was a teenager. Carlos was a human trafficker and illegal immigration expert. She had 3 children with Carlos, but the marriage was short-lived and quickly led to a divorce. There were even rumors suggesting she might have had him taken out after their separation. No one found concrete proof. In the early 1970s, Grela married a narcotics trafficker named Alberto Bravo. This marked her entry into the world of narcotics trade. She and her new husband got into the narcotics trade, and they conducted their operations in New York City. After law enforcement began chasing them, they retired to Colombia and began operating from there. Grela's relationship with her husband at the time also began to deteriorate. The fights became serious when she discovered he was taking money from their business without informing her. The dispute spiraled out of control, leading to a tragic confrontation. In the heat of the moment, Grela fired at her husband, and he succumbed to his injuries. Following this grim event, she earned the nickname the Black Widow. In 1978, Grela ventured into her 3rd marriage, this time with a bank robber named Dario Sepulveda. Unfortunately, he met the same fate as her other 2 husbands and left the world too soon. Grela never remarried after that. Returning to the United States in the late 70s, she established a base in Miami, resuming her involvement in the narcotics trade. Her expertise in the business became so renowned that she was later dubbed the godmother in the latter part of her criminal career.
The disregard for human life there at the scene was something that we had never seen or heard of here in South Florida.
Former DEA agent Bob Palombo called Grela a chameleon, as she could change herself very easily. She was a short woman with 4 kids, giving her the motherly aura and innocence that came with the identity. Just by looking at her, you wouldn't think she was a brutal narco lord, but a peek into her history would shock anyone. Grela loved killings. Bodies lined the streets of Miami as a result of her feuds. She gathered around her a group of henchmen known as the Pistoleros. Initiation into the group was earned by killing someone and cutting off a body part as proof of the deed. She would also remove someone she didn't want to settle her debts with. She not only killed rivals and wayward lovers, but used murder as a means of canceling debts she didn't want to pay. A particularly bloody massacre that took place in July 1979 in a Miami shopping center became known as the Dadeland Massacre. Grela chose a series of violent assaults to eliminate her enemies, the tales of which are portrayed in the documentary Cowboy Wars. She caused the death of around 200 people, and this includes boyfriends and associates who dared to cross her. Grela had affairs with both men and women, and she had many boyfriends. But if she thought a man was cheating on her, she would get rid of him. She undoubtedly stood out as the most ruthless female narco lord of her time.
Known in cities across the US as the Godmother, for her mafia-like brutality, one of the most feared narcotics homicidal maniacs that we've ever encountered.
Her preferred method was daylight drive by gunfire, and using this tactic, Griselda got rid of several rivals.
On the streets of Medellin, Blanco develops what becomes her signature method of elimination.
She was an expert in narcotics trafficking, which meant that she was earning a lot of hard cash. As a result, her net worth soared quickly. At some point, she was earning millions in just a matter of days. What did she do with this money? Griselda knew how to enjoy the luxuries of life. Hosting extravagant parties for friends and acquaintances, and investing in opulent properties became her norm. Soon she became a prime suspect for law enforcement agencies, and she was forced to flee to California in 1984. Despite all the running, she was captured in 1985 and handed a 15-year sentence. The officers caught her after a dramatic mission.
Bob went directly up to Griselda and gave her a big kiss on the cheek. She demanded to know, what is that for? Which Bob replied, that's because I'm so glad to see you.
Griselda was released in 2004 and immediately deported to Colombia. She quit her life of crimes and chose to live a simple life. But in 2012, she met a fate similar to the one she had dealt to numerous rivals during her peak. The godmother was gunned down in front of a Medellin butcher shop. Officers who dealt with her case weren't surprised. They only wondered how she'd lived so many years without being taken out. Claudia Ooa Felix. Claudia Ooa Felix was born on January 15, 1984 in Sinaloa, Mexico. The state is the home base of El Chapo's infamous Sinaloa cartel, and Claudia was drawn to the glamour and authority that this cartel had to offer. She joined El Chapo's ranks at an early age. By the age of 30, she earned the nickname Empress of Antrax, as the leader of the assassin group Antrax. Alongside her involvement in organized crime, Claudia also pursued a career in modeling. In 2013, she gained internet fame by sharing posts of her glamorous lifestyle, whether jet-setting around or displaying her collection of luxury items, including guns, clothes, and jewelry, from the comfort of her lavish home. She returned to public attention when she became romantically involved with the leader of Los Antrax, Jose Rodrigo Arechiga Gamboa. He was also known as El Chino Antrax. Her fans were now quite sure she was associated with the Sinaloa cartel.
Todos esos medios que me difamaron y dañaron a mis hijos, a mi familia y a mí mi más grande repudio y rechazo, pues estén siendo sujetos de bullying. Mi madre se encuentra en zozobra sufriendo y yo totalmente devastada, intranquila y sin paz.
Although authorities questioned her involvement, Claudia always denied any associations with the cartel. She continued to showcase her wealth on social media, earning her the nickname of the Kim Kardashian of the Sinaloa cartel. Claudia was certain that the police could never catch her, and oddly enough, they never did. On September 14, 2019, a man called the authorities after waking up beside Claudia and finding her unresponsive. Unlike other cartel members who either died in a gun battle or a death sentence, Claudia's story took a different turn. She passed away from a substance overdose. The police traced her social media and discovered her last post. It showed that she had a meal at a seafood restaurant before heading out to party. Sinaloa State Attorney General Juan Jose Rios Estevilo spoke of a possible cause of death. Forensic examiners made an analysis of the various substances this person consumed, and they tested positive. All of this compromised her organisms, which caused the death. But what we can assure is that the death specifically derived from a non-violent cause. No one could imagine that the young female narco would meet such a tragic and untimely demise. Yenia Pacho. Yenia Pacho was born in Navolato, Sinaloa, and her upbringing in poverty shaped her into a tough woman. Unfortunately, not much is known about her early life, but her sadistic tendencies and craving for violence tells us that she grew up in harsh conditions. Mexican cartels earn millions of dollars through narcotics trafficking, kidnapping, and extortion. This presented Yenia with an opportunity to escape poverty and make quick money. She joined the Gulf Cartel in 2009. She initially took on the role of a halcón. They were tasked with surveying specific areas and gathering information for the cartel. They served as the organization's eyes and ears, keeping tabs on law enforcement and ensuring the smooth trafficking of narcotics through established channels. Yenia was dedicated and ruthless for a female member. Her bosses were pleased with her performance and elevated her to the position of a sicaria, or a female hitman. This was a significant leap that required power, strategic thinking, and unmatched brutality. Yenia achieved this promotion in a relatively short period, earning her the nickname La Güera Loca, or the crazy crazy witch due to her violent acts. Rivalry between the Gulf Cartel and Los Zetas was at peak at that time. Daily clashes ensued, claiming numerous lives in the power struggle. Being a sicaria of the Gulf Cartel, Yesenia actively participated in the battle against Los Zetas. The war between these two cartels extended beyond Tamaulipas, reaching states like Guerrero, Michoacán, and even Veracruz. Yesenia was granted her own cell, and she led factions known as Las Hienas and Las Flaquitas. Both groups were tasked to reduce the number of enemies, with Las Hienas specifically tasked with eliminating Los Zetas members. Whenever Yesenia captured a Zetas member, she showed no mercy. She was known for choosing the most inhumane methods to end them. A video by Gulf Cartel members was found on the internet, showing Yesenia brutally taking out a Zetas member. The exact date and location of the incident remain unknown, but the video's content was gruesome and disturbing. A Los Zetas member was tied down on the floor, surrounded by Gulf Cartel members. Yesenia was also there. A commander demonstrated the process of a human, and Yesenia followed the instructions gleefully. Upon completing the task, she joyfully displayed the head to her comrades and the camera. The hit woman got her nickname after cutting off the head of a Los Zetas member and removing the skin from his face with a sharp razor. Unsurprisingly, the female narco lord lost her life in the hands of her enemies. In 2014, Los Zetas members posted a video online that showed 4 women, all kneeling. Behind the women stood Zetas members, armed and dressed in their uniforms. The online video doesn't reveal when or how the 4 captured women ended up in this situation, and the location is also undisclosed, but they might have been caught in rival territories. 3 of these women were young, and the 4th was elderly. The masked Los Zetas members questioned the women about their names, cartel affiliations, and roles. One of the women said she was Yenia Pacho and a member of the Gulf Cartel. The woman on the far left claimed to be the niece of a Gulf Cartel leader. The 2nd and 4th women admitted to working as falcons, providing information to their bosses within the cartel. All 4 women accepted that they had connections with Gulf Cartel commanders. After the interrogation was over, the Los Zetas members removed the heads of all 4 women. Their body parts were found days later. La Guerra lived the same fate that she dealt to other criminals. The Zetas cut her throat with a large knife and let her suffer for a few minutes before finishing her off for good. Her body was distributed in different points of the land as well as those of the other 3 criminals who were kidnapped with her. Marjorie Chacon Rosell. The exceptionally smart Marjorie Chacon Rosell entered the world on October 4, 1972, Guatemala City. Even though she was born in a middle-class family, her business acumen and knowledge in law made her well-suited for any big company.
She was one of the few women who was decidedly middle class. I spoke to a former DEA agent, and he said that had Marjorie been in the legal world, she could have reached CEO position in some big company, that she was very astute and had very high-end skills, and it just so happens that she decided to apply those in the drug trade instead.
After high school, she pursued a psychology degree at university, but she abandoned her studies to enter the narcotics trade. Soon, she became one of Guatemala's top money launderers and extended her influence across Central America. As per DEA reports, she was involved in laundering up to $10 million monthly, often working closely with major Mexican cartels. Marjorie Chacon's drug trafficking activities and her ties to the Mexican drug cartels make her a critical figure in the narcotics trade. The U.S. Department of the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control Director Adam J. Subin said in 2012, "In the South American cartel scene, ruthless determination is mandatory for you to climb to the top, and Marjorie had a network of narco lords and brutally criminal-minded men as her allies. She was a woman with a big presence and very intimidating because of the kind of people she was surrounded by and the amount of people. She moved with security everywhere. There was always someone at the door. She also had befriended key officials of the Guatemalan government and also had the law enforcement of the country in her pocket. Marjorie was guarded by the national police," said the former cartel employee. "She had 3 or 4 cars with her from the Ministry of the Interior. It was security that was assigned to her. She earned the nickname Queen of the South due to her power and influence. The DEA became suspicious of her in the mid-2010s, and Marjorie decided to play safe. Rather than defending her cartel, she immediately cooperated with the DEA. She pulled down the entire Guatemalan operation with her and exposed corrupt leaders."
Marjorie was incredibly valuable to the DEA, and when they sanctioned her, she realized that if she wanted to stay out of prison for the rest of her life, she was going to have to cooperate substantially.
Many of her associates were charged and sentenced.
Los testimonios de Chacon sirvieron para encauzar y condenar a varios acusados de narcotráfico y lavado de dinero, incluidos los empresarios Lorenzana de Guatemala.
Her cooperation with the DEA earned her a 26 years prison prison time in 2014, but using her influences, she reduced the sentence to 12 years in 2015. In a shocking turn of events, she was released from prison in 2019. She never went back to Guatemala. Not much was known about her after her release, but authorities suspect that she might get back to her regular trade any day. Sandra Avila Beltron. Sandra Avila Beltron was born in Baja California, Mexico in October 1960. She came from a family involved in narcotics trafficking. Her family was also connected to the Guadalajara cartel, and her father was directly linked to the leader of the cartel. So she was exposed to the world of violence from a very early age. Guns, narcotics, fights, and revenge. Sandra grew up in an environment where all this was very common. In fact, she was also a target of the rivals because of her father's trade. She was only a teenager when she was first attacked. People walked the streets with pistols at the waist, with musicians walking and playing behind them. At dawn, you heard the music, the shootouts. It was when they killed the people. Even though she dated many in the criminal world, Sandra chose a law enforcement officer to marry. She had significant influence on him, for which he quickly changed sides and joined the world of narcotics trading after marrying her. Unfortunately, her husband was gunned down by cartel gunmen.
Íbamos a desayunar Joel y yo. De un momento se atravesó un carro, nos cerró el paso y se bajaron dos personas armadas. Se nos pusieron de frente y inició el tiroteo.
She survived but had to see her partner die right before her eyes, and she couldn't do anything to save him.
La persona que me iba siguiendo armada trató de salir corriendo para que no lo tuvieran y lo detienen cuando él trata de salir. Es como yo me salvo. Y alcancé a ver a Joel tirado en la calle, muerto.
After some time, she married another law enforcement officer. This one, too, ended up choosing a criminal path, but he lost his life in the infamous Mexican drug war. As Sandra got older, she got better at her illegal activities. She used creative and covert ways to traffic narcotics, and no one suspected her. She owned a few tuna boats that she used for smuggling. When living in Guadalajara, she never disclosed her profession to her neighbors. People living around her thought that she bought and sold houses and clothes in Guadalajara, and that's how she earned her living. No one had a clue of who she was and the family she belonged to, but her downfall came in 2002. The police learned about her whereabouts when her teenage son was captured by a rival gang. Sandra had to pay $5 million to get him back. During this event, the police discovered that Sandra owned more than 200 properties in Guadalajara, and the number didn't quite match the persona she had created. 5 years later, in 2007, they arrested her, and she was given a 10-year prison sentence.
No descansas. Estás cambiándote constantemente de ciudad, de casa. No puedes tener amistades, no puedes ver a tu familia. Es agobiante.
After her arrest, she could finally relax.
A ser detenida, allá no huir. Sí fue una vida.
She was deported from the United States in 2013 and returned to Mexico, where she faced money laundering charges.
Sandra Avila Beltran, a convicted drug trafficker, is back in her native Mexico after being deported from the United States.
She got out of prison in 2015. Nowadays, she lives openly in Guadalajara and appears in interviews. When asked if she feels sorry for anything she did in her life or career, she replied that she doesn't regret anything because she never hurt anyone.
Yo culpable no, porque nunca le he hecho yo daño a nadie. Remordimiento tampoco, porque yo no he hecho nunca mal. Dolor sí, porque he perdido muchos amigos.
Due to her expertise in the trade, she earned the title La Reina del Pacifico, or the Queen of the Pacific, and even had a popular song dedicated to her in 2004. Additionally, she served as the inspiration for the telenovela Queen of the South. However, when questioned about her impact on the Mexican crime rate, she denies having such a significant influence. According to her, there are various forms of corruption, and narcotics trafficking alone can't be deemed the primary contributing factor.
La corrupción. Pero no es nomás con el narcotráfico, hay mucha corrupción en cualquier ámbito social, comercio, empresas, tráfico de influencias con el narcotráfico, con indocumentados, con en todo.
Although her statements may have some logic, it's undeniable that her actions paved the way for contemporary drug traffickers, making her a role model for them. The scale of trafficking has expanded significantly, causing ongoing suffering in Mexico and the United States each day. What did you think about these brutal female narco lords? Who do you think is the most brutal female narco lord out there? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel.